Good morning. Our chalice lighting today is adapted from For the Freedom of Faith by Heather K. Janules. Our prophets died for the freedom of faith. We are here in their spirit. We are here to practice and sustain our living tradition, to light a chalice, claiming for justice the heat and power of fire. In our free faith, we are here, seeking freedom from despair, the freedom to be loved as ourselves, and the freedom to grow beyond imagination. We are here, gathered in the name of all that we find holy. Let us give thanks for the gift of gathering here as we light our chalice.
These words are from Come Yet Again Come by Ian W. Riddell. Come, come, whoever you are. Do you hear that voice calling you, calling us? That voice which calls us together here today in a space made holy by our presence and by that sacred breath we share in singing and speaking and silence. That voice which calls us to remember that we are not alone and that we are inextricably linked to all other life, woven into a vast tapestry of existence of which we are a powerful, integral, and holy part. And just as we have been called together here today, we act as the voice, the heart, the hands of another call. The call to walk with the wanderers, sing and dance with the worshipers, proclaim the memory of those who have taken their leave, wrap the despairing and the broken in the arms of love and community, and hold the hands of all of us who have broken our vows and call us back again and again to the covenant and work of justice, humility, and steadfast faithfulness. For this we are here together today, so my friends, come yet again. Come, let us be here together. Good morning and welcome. It's a beautiful, hot day outside, and you are here, and I thank you for that. I'm Reverend Amy Petrie Shaw. My pronouns are they, them, theirs, and I'm speaking to you as always from land that is the traditional territory of the indigenous Iowa people. Whenever you hear a land acknowledgement, I would ask that you consider donating at least $1, just $1, to an indigenous supporting fund or foundation or not-for-profit effort. Kent Newman is our celebrant today, and Barb Martin is our song leader. Bruce Martin is our pianist, and Jean McCracken is the pastoral care associate for the week. Lyra Halston, our membership coordinator, is here with us, and if you'd like to be connected to our online groups or you need more information about First Unitarian, she is going to put an email address in the chat where you can reach her. As always, please keep your mics muted during the service. After the service today, we are going to have a short coffee hour because our annual meeting begins at 11:30, and we need the Zoom. So we will be having about a 15-minute check-in after the service, but I'm going to cut that off at exactly 11:15 so that we can open the annual meeting on the other link. If you have not registered yet for the annual meeting, I am going to put the registration link in the chat now, and you can cut and paste this link. You can copy and paste it. If you have not registered yet, there is the link to register. Members only, please. We will be checking. If you go to that link and you click on it, it will send you, it will register you, get your name, and then it will give you the link to get into the annual meeting. So please, if you haven't done that already, please consider doing that. It's okay if you even do it during the service. Get registered and make sure you keep a hold of the link that it gives you to get to the Zoom meeting for the annual meeting. And thank you all again for being here today.
Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Des Moines. My name is Kent Newman. My pronouns are he, him, and his. No matter who you are or where you've come from, you are welcome here, whether or not you live in Des Moines or have ever physically been at First Unitarian or Des Moines. Whoever you are, we hope that you find thoughts which challenge you, welcome which invites you into community, and people to accompany you on your journey. Our gathering song this morning is number 205, Amazing Grace. The words to this song were originally written in 1772 by a man who had been a slave trader and had left that profession and become a crusader against enslavement. The words are copied in the chat screen. Please keep your mics muted and simply sing along at home if you'd like.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a soul like me. I once was lost, but now am found, was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. 'Tis grace that brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. Through many dangers, toils, and trials, brought shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we'd first begun.
Thank you, Bruce and Barb. Fundraising in an independent church is no laughing matter, but giving money shouldn't hurt. So I tell our morning offering joke with my normal seriousness and gravity. A small town in Iowa had 3 churches, count them 3, and a Buddhist temple. It was early summer, and all 4 buildings were absolutely plagued by squirrels running and playing and making little squirrels. The Buddhists tried living in harmony with the squirrels, and they were soon overrun. The Quaker meeting tried trapping them humanely and taking them to the woods nearby, but the furry pests quickly returned. The Presbyterians decided it was predestined that the squirrels would be there and resolved to tolerate them running everywhere. The Unitarian Universalists, however, solved the problem rather quickly. They simply invited the squirrels into the service and told them it was time to pass the offering baskets. They haven't seen a squirrel since. Don't be squirrely. The morning offering is now going to be given and received through the link in the chat. 1/2 of our electronic plate goes to the internal social justice programs of the church, and 1/2 to this year's Faith in Action partners, Planned Parenthood and Central Iowa Immigrant Support Coalition. Thank you all so much for the gifts you give here and for all of the gifts and the time and the talent and the treasure that you bring to First Unitarian Church of Des Moines. Our gifts matter because church is all about community. We're here together as a community of human hands and human hearts. We come together to share our laughter and our tears, to bear witness and to minister to one another as we struggle with life's sorrows and we celebrate life's joy. We have a joy this week that was sent in. Evelyn Glazebrook is such a trooper. She has been living independently in her home in Windsor Heights for over 30 years and has decided she's had enough of the house cleaning and the meal prep and the yard work and the snow removal. So she made a wonderful decision as of June 3rd. She moved to an independent living apartment in Beaverdale Estates where she's going to enjoy everything they have to offer. So please send Evelyn housewarming cards or cards of congratulation. Wish her all the best. Her new address is Beaverdale Estates, 4610 Douglas, number 234, Des Moines, Iowa, 50310. And if you need that address again, you can always bug me about it, email me, and I will happily give that to you. I will also put it in the chat here in just a minute. Let us share together in the chat now the names of anyone we know who could use some special care, love, or attention this week. And as we type their names into the chat, may the love of this community hold them all. And I'll put Evelyn in here. May the light of our community shine on the broken places of the world. May the work of our community support, aid, and comfort all those who are marginalized and oppressed, silenced, or at risk. May we never look away when we're needed. May those who are grieving be comforted. May we be comforted. May those who are tired find rest. May we find rest. May the broken places be healed. May we be healed. And may those who are filled with joy and laughter be abundant. Together each week we light 3 real or virtual candles. One for the joys and sorrows we've shared here, one for the names we've put in the chat, and one last candle for all of the joys and all of the sorrows which are deeply held but remain unspoken here today.
Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul.
Patty, if you would unmute, I think you have a few words for us.
I do. For those of you who may have joined the service late, today is the day of the annual meeting. What you will need to do is use the link that Amy has posted here in the chat to register if you're a member, and then you will receive a link to the annual meeting, which starts at 11:30 this morning. You'll hear about some of the church's accomplishments this year. We may not have been in the building, but we were certainly busy. You'll learn who has been selected as this year's Unsung UU. And of course, we will discuss the budget. So please, if you're a member of the church, please join us at 11:30 for the annual meeting. Thanks.
Our first reading today is God is One by Francis David, adapted by Richard Fuchs. Sometime around 1568 in the Eastern Hungarian kingdom that we now call Transylvania, a formerly Calvinist minister named Francis David declared in Hungarian, Egy az Isten, which means God is one. The reading we're about to do is a list of David's most famous quotes. These are some of the earliest examples of Unitarian reasoned thought, and they may sound familiar. The reading is called God is One. In this world, there have always been many opinions about faith and salvation. You need not think alike to love alike. There must be knowledge in faith also. Sanctified reason is the lantern of faith. Religious reform can never be all at once, but gradually, step by step. If they offer something better, I will gladly learn. The most important spiritual function is conscience, the source of all spiritual joy and happiness. Conscience will not be quieted by anything less than truth and justice. We must accept God's truth in this lifetime. Salvation must be accomplished here on earth. God is indivisible. Egy az Isten. God is one.
With those words fresh in your mind, please join me in 1 minute of silent thought, meditation, or prayer.
Our second reading today is again by Francis David, Against Worshiping Jesus by Dale Tuggy. There was a famous dispute between the famous Unitarian Socinus and a Hungarian Unitarian leader, Francis David, about whether Christians should worship or pray to Jesus. Both are what I call humanitarian Unitarians. They believe that Jesus did not exist before his conception and does not have a divine nature. This dispute went on for some time in both person and in print. Sadly, it became politicized and personalized, I take it, through no fault of Socinus, and turned into an attempt by George Blandrata, also known as Giorgio Biandrata, to slander and destroy David. While David was deathly ill, he was dragged before a prince to answer blasphemy charges. In his historical introduction in the Rakovian Catechism, here's how Rees represents David's position as expressed by his son-in-law on his behalf at the trial. No divine worship which was not prescribed or commanded in the scriptures could be agreeable to God. The invocation of Christ was not there prescribed or commanded. Therefore, it could not be agreeable to God. If quitting the scriptures and following human comments and our own fancies, we seek for grounds for the invocation of Christ, we may also, on the same reasons, invoke saints both living and dead. If this is accurate, it is interesting, for unlike most who object to the worship of Jesus, it doesn't rely on the supposedly obviously true but undefended assumptions that no one other than God himself may be given religious worship. In the end, according to Rees, the presiding prince denounced David for his, quote, atheistical, execrable, and unheard of blasphemy, end quote, and vowed to make an example of him. But before he had a chance, David died in prison from his illness. With David gone, supposedly, Blandrata was very influential in the Unitarian churches of the area, but soon had a falling out with them. He died, it is said, by being strangled by a relation he'd made an heir to his property. Our next song today is number 20, Be Thou My Vision. It's our centering song. This song is originally from about the 6th century in Ireland, and its best known modern version is from 1912. It has been one of the most popular hymns in the United Kingdom Unitarian churches since 1919. The words will be in the chat screen. Please keep your mics muted and sing along at home if you would like.
Be thou my vision, O God of my heart, not be all else to me, save that thou art. Thou my best thought, by day or by night, waking or sleeping, thy presence my light. Be thou my wisdom, and thou my true word. I ever with thee, and thou with me, God. Thou my soul shelter, thou my high tower. Raise thou me heavenward, O power of my power. Riches I need not, nor world's empty praise. Thou my inheritance, now and always. And thou only first in my heart, sovereign of heaven, my treasure, thou art.
Thank you so much, Barb and Bruce. Francis David is an amazing character. He's brilliant, argumentative, stubborn, excited by his religion. Most of what we're going to be covering today in the sermon comes from a group of resources, but primarily a Tapestry of Faith program by Matt and Gail Tittle and Gail Forsyth Vale in Harvest the Power. We're using some pieces of that in this sermon, and I'm using an article written by Eric Cherry for the UU World. as well as pieces from sermons by James Ishmael Ford. And part of why Francis David is so important, and we're going to talk about it in a second, is that his work led to a decree called the Edict of Torda being issued. And it is literally the underlayment of our entire religion. And you'll recognize pieces of today's modern Unitarian Universalism as we talk about this. Religious tolerance has never been a thing before the modern era in general. Most religions were the religion of a place, and people who didn't follow that religion weren't always welcome. But for a very short time in the 16th century, in what today we call Transylvania, religious tolerance became the law of the land. King John Sigismund was made king when his mother died. He found himself ruling a country that had multiple religions. They had Roman Catholics, who, as some of you are aware, pray to saints and to the Virgin Mary for intercession with God, to speak to God for them. So they've got them. They've got the Calvinists, who believe that whether you go to heaven or hell is predetermined. Lutherans, who are very close to the Calvinists, but some slight tweaks on the way they worship. And Proto-Unitarians. And among the king's advisors were the man that Kent referenced a minute ago, George Biandrada. He was Polish. He was a doctor. He was a politician, which in those days meant that he could lie out of both sides of his mouth simultaneously while telling another story going forward. And there was the court preacher, David Farrens, known in the West as Francis David. And at that time, in the 16th century, Christian doctrine wasn't as set as people like to claim it is today. All the different branches of Christianity were still fighting to prove that their doctrine was the doctrine, and sometimes those fights were literal. So the king realized that there was no way anyone was going to compromise. They were busy killing each other in the back streets over this stuff. He issued an edict saying anybody can follow whichever Christian doctrine they believe in. It allowed Biandrada and David, who were both Calvinists, to start to ask questions about the nature of Trinity and the deity of Jesus. And their ideas upset people, really upset people. If you think about the time period, so no televisions, no internet, no radios, no easy to get to musicians. What did you do for fun while you fought about religion? You argued and you fought and you read the Bible in different ways and you fought some more about it. And so when you got tired of arguing in the back streets, you arranged formal debates. King John scheduled such a debate to start on March 3rd, 1568. And he did something brilliant. He asked all the people, all the Unitarians, which was a new word at the time, the people who believed that God was one thing, and he invited them to come and argue with the Trinitarians, to debate them. Now, when we think of a debate, we think of an hour or at most 2 hours where you sit in the seats and it's very reasoned. This debate lasted for 10 days. It began at 5 a.m. every day. Francis David was the official representative of the Unitarian position. And these debates weren't just I think or I feel. These men, because it was all men debating, came into this argument forearmed with books, with Bibles, with written scholarly treatises. They argued the most tiny minutia of their positions. They relied on scripture. They relied on written arguments that had come before. And at the conclusion of 10 days, where people had tagged in and out, and there had been stops for food and for water, Francis David's arguments carried the day. And because of that, a lot of people in Transylvania embraced this new religious perspective that was really codifying itself as Unitarianism. Now, it had existed before, but it had never had this level of speaker. And so people started saying, after 10 days of listening to this was must-see TV at the time. These people would come and sit for hours and listen to these reasoned arguments. And they came away and said, yeah, you know what? That sounds right. A second debate the following year, also with Francis David, made the king say, you know what? That's right. I'm a Unitarian. And because I'm a Unitarian, I believe there should be religious tolerance all over this country. In 1571, Unitarianism was given legal recognition. The king died 2 months later as a result of an accident. He left no heir to the throne. Well, this was a mess. The king was succeeded by a Catholic, Stephen Bathory, who dismissed all the Unitarians at court. He kept Biandrata, while reaffirming a position of tolerance for those in Christian religions named in King John's 1571 decree. He declared that you can't keep innovating. If you've already innovated, that's fine. Whatever John said, I'll hold to. But you can't keep going like this. Now it's frozen. Unitarianism kept growing, though. More and more Transylvanians liked this idea. And so an ecclesiastical organization grew up around them. By 1577, the king was getting a little worried. This new Catholic king, King Stephen, was becoming nervous. There were a lot of Unitarians. He started to put restrictions on what it meant and what you could do. Francis David was now a Unitarian bishop. We had bishops back then. He kept reforming the doctrine. He kept developing the church organizations. He kept asking questions about things like the Lord's Supper and infant baptism and predestination, the worship of Jesus. Biandrata was more concerned with the health of the church than with doctrine, and he started to tell David, shut up, be quiet, you're going to get yourself killed. Well, Francis David was indeed a Unitarian. He wasn't about to be quiet when his reasoning had led him to a place where he had information. He started to preach more and more heretical ideas from the pulpit. Biandrata thought this will be the end of us, so he sent a message to King Stephen. And Francis David was arrested and tried for the crime of innovation, questioning and challenging religious doctrines. That's what he was arrested for. The prosecutor at the trial, none other than our old friend Giorgio Biandrata. He dissembled when he was asked about his own earlier involvement in questioning doctrine. And Francis David was found guilty of innovation, condemned to prison for the remainder of his life. He died in the royal dungeon in 1579, and Biandrata went on to push the Unitarian Church toward a more conservative position. By the time Biandrata died, very little remained of the Transylvanian Unitarian movement influence on politics. The church was forced into a still position where it could do very little. What mattered, though, and what came to life later, was that edict that King John had written at Torda after that first and second debate. That document shapes our UU faith today and is directly based on the arguments of Francis David. It's very direct. If you ever get a chance, read the whole Edict of Torda. But this is the part that resonates the most for us. The edict said, "In every place the preacher shall preach and explain the gospel, each according to his understanding of it. And if the congregation like it, well. If not, no one shall compel them, for their souls would not be satisfied. But they shall be permitted to keep a preacher whose teaching they approve. No one shall be reviled for his religion by anyone, and it's not permitted that anyone should threaten anyone else by imprisonment, for faith is the gift of God." That is the underlayment of our own free pulpit. It's the piece that underlays our ability for a congregation to call forth a preacher that works for their church and to keep that preacher as long as that person works for their church. It's the piece that says no Unitarian Universalist church ever will be compelled to have leadership that they do not agree with. A few years ago, in 2017, we hit the 450th anniversary of this Edict of Torda. And Reverend Eric Cherry wrote an amazing article, a really nice article, called The Edict of Torda, a Landmark in Religious Freedom. And what he said is there is so much that the Edict of Torda points to that our tradition continues to rely on today. It is where that grounding commitment that faith is not endowed with purpose by government or empires, but by what we consider to be the sacred or the holy, no matter what that is, that a free pulpit and a free pew are necessities for a free religion, and that even the stirrings of our commitment to resist authoritarianism as a religious practice stems from there. This is what makes us who we are. It begins with the Edict of Torda. And we can look back at that. We can look back at that edict and at the struggle to get it passed and realize that it's clear to us it didn't go quite far enough, but it was such an important step. It was radical. Francis David was radical in his time, and he was martyred for it. But he was steadfastly devoted to the use of thought and reason and refusing to accept any position as the ultimate position. He wanted to keep looking and reading and thinking. Religion for David was a process. It was a journey, not an arrival point. Francis David and the Edict of Torda call us today, American Unitarian Universalists, to do the same thing. To keep exploring, to keep being unafraid of thought and change, to be bold and outspoken in saying who we are and what we believe. I cannot suggest enough, if you get time, look up more about Francis David. Read about his life. There are multiple books written on it. If you only have a little bit of time, read the Edict of Torda. You can find it free all over the internet. This is who we began as, and you can see our ancestors' ability to keep doing his work when you look at who we are today. A faith where humanists and atheists, Buddhists, Jews, Christians can be together with pagans, earth-based practitioners, Muslims. It's because we kept using reason, we kept using thought, we kept going forward. May we do that for the next 450 years, because we stand on the shoulder of a giant in Francis David. Amen.
We extinguish our chalice, but we carry this flame in our hearts to light our way as we create a community of sacred relationship. Our final song today is number 111, Life of Ages. The words will be in the chat screen. Please keep your mics muted and sing along at home if you would like.
Life of ages richly poured, love of God unspent and free, flowing in the prophet's word, and all people's liberty. Never was to chosen race that unstinted, tight confined. Yours is every time and place, fountain sweet of heart and mind. Breathing in the thinker's breed, pulsing in the hero's blood, nerving simplest thoughts and deed, freshening time with truth and good, consecrating art and song, holy book and pilgrim way, quelling floods of tyrant wrong, lighting freedom's sacred sway. Life of ages richly poured, love of God unspent and free, flows still in the prophet's word, and the people's liberty.
Take the religion of your hearts into the world. Be blessed as you live your sacred truth. Peace, ashe, and may it be so. I will turn on the breakout rooms in just a minute, and please remember they will go till right at 11:15.